Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Nitai Namineche, Namirhate, Sharamulyenam Tite Chere. Nitai Namineche, Namirhate, Sharamulyenam Tite Chere. Nitai Namineche, Namirhate, Sharamulyenam Dite 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 Chere. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Hare Krishna, everyone. Thank you very much for coming out on a Friday night. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. So we are very fortunate. Actually, we cannot even express how much fortune we have to His grace. We have His grace, Vaisesika Prabhu over here, and God grace, Guru Mataji. All that we have been doing in book distribution. I was just speaking to him today morning that back in 2017 when he came here and he sowed the seed of the monthly Sankirtan festival that we have been doing since then, every month at different locations, and so much so that now we do it at 3 different locations. And back then, Narottam Prabhu started with chapter a day. Since 2017 to now, we are now having more than 6 chat sessions held by different devotees. So one by Narottam Prabhu, another, there are 3 amongst congregation and 3 amongst the youth. So these are certain inspirations that we completely draw from his ways, Vaisesika Prabhuji. And there are so many things that we learn from him. He spent more than 45 years distributing Srila Prabhupada books. Like today morning I was showing him a photograph back in 1980s at the airport how he used to distribute books. And that's an inspiration. I still look
50,
at
not 45, 50.
Oh,
this is 70, this is 23. I started in 73.
Maybe an internal book distributor. So we welcome His Vaisesika Prabhuji by enthusiastically chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
I just heard a verse that I thought you'd like. And I'm going to read it to you. You ready? This is from Srimad Bhagavatam, 1st Canto, 15th chapter, 27th verse. Desha kalarta yuktani hrid tapo parshamani cha haranti smarantash govinda bhihitani me. This is Arjuna speaking. How appropriate, since tomorrow is World Gita Day, Gita Jayanti. Arjuna says, now I am attracted to those instructions imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. I'm going to read it again. Were you all able to hear it? Now I am attracted to those instructions. So when he says now, does anybody know the context here? Because this is the 15th chapter, and I'll give you a hint. The title of the chapter is The Pandavas Retire Timely. So why would he need to get in touch with the instructions now in the context of this verse? What do you think?
Krishna has left.
Krishna's left the planet, and the world's plunged into darkness. So now I am attracted to those instructions. So anyway, imparted to me by the personality of Godhead Govinda, because they are impregnated with instructions for relieving the burning heart in all circumstances of time and space. Prabhupada's purport reads like poetry here. It's so beautiful. You ready?
Yes.
You ready? How do you know you're ready? You want to hear it? Here we go. Herein Arjuna refers to the instruction of the Bhagavad Gita, which was imparted to him by the Lord on the battlefield of Kurukshetra. The Lord left behind him the instructions of the Bhagavad Gita, not for the benefit of Arjuna alone, but also for all time and in all lands. The Bhagavad Gita, being spoken by the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is the essence of all Vedic wisdom. It is nicely presented by the Lord himself for all who have very little time to go through the vast Vedic literatures like the Upanishads, Puranas, and Vedanta Sutras. It is put within the study of the great historical epic Mahabharata, which was especially prepared for the less intelligent class, namely the women, the laborers, and those who are worthless descendants of the Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and higher sections of the Vaishyas. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. I'll read that again. The problem which arose in the heart of Arjuna on the battlefield of Kurukshetra was solved by the teachings of Bhagavad Gita. Just by hearing that sentence, it gives solace, because so many problems in our lives seem intractable and unsolvable. Have you ever had a problem that seemed unsolvable? Solve comes from solvent, which when you apply to a particular substance, it dissolves it. Hare Krishna. So the Bhagavad Gita is the only solution for those who have a problem, which is having come in contact with the material nature. Categorically, everyone has problems in this material world. And categorically, the only solution is the instructions of Krishna. And of all the instructions, the Bhagavad Gita is the most straightforward and simple. Anyone can consume it within a small amount of time. In fact, you don't even need to read the whole thing. This is going to be a problem. I have to cough. Sorry for everyone listening online. So, it's very satisfying to distribute the Bhagavad Gita, because most people are getting cheated. We walked through the Delhi airport on the way here. That was our first stop in India. And when you get off through immigration, get off and then go through immigration, then you walk through the duty-free shop. And I really felt sorry for the young men and women who work there, because it looks so out of place. First of all, in India, and then in Delhi, right near Vrindavan. And they see young people who should be given an opportunity to train their senses so that they can become attracted to Krishna and solve the problems of life. But somebody has induced them to come and work in a place where they're selling whiskey and cigarettes, all the stuff you really have to have, right? And I felt bad just seeing them. And then when I see all of you, I'm happy because you're doing the right thing. You're taking Bhagavad Gita every day, and then you're also distributing it to others. They tried to show enthusiasm, those young people in the duty-free shop. But how much enthusiasm can you have when you come from a culture where you know your grandmother's not going to be very pleased with you for what you're selling there? But all of you, on the other hand, if your grandmother did like Bhagavad Gita, and I haven't met an Indian yet whose grandmother didn't, would be very pleased, and rightly so. Because you have the key to success in human life. So it's important what you're doing, also developing a team. So there's this sense of cooperation and organization. And entrepreneurialism is exciting because we all have a creative spirit. We want to do something, right? Say yes. Yeah. And the best thing that we can do, and we can do it unlimitedly, is there's unlimited souls in the material world, is to develop ways to distribute Krishna consciousness. If you sell any other product, you're not going to be satisfied. Something wrong with it somewhere. But the distribution of transcendental knowledge is unassailable. And therefore, the greatest of devotees, since time immemorial, have glorified those who distribute transcendental knowledge, including the gopis, in the verse Tavakatamritam Tapta Jivanam. It says, Buddhi Dajana, those who are merciful to others. They're especially dear to Krishna, and Krishna says it himself in the Bhagavad Gita. They're glorious souls, say the gopis, those who distribute this knowledge. And then Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita says, there's no one more dear to me than that person who distributes this knowledge of the Bhagavad Gita, especially to devotees. And how do you know who's a devotee unless you approach everybody? Right? People ask that question sometimes. How do we know? So you don't know until you go ask everybody. Sometimes it's surprising too, because you think that guy will never take, and then it's like, excuse me, it's like, oh, where have you been? And other people that look like they should aren't so into it. I was going door to door in San Jose once, and so there were apartments. We went to the upstairs apartment, and there was a Gujarati couple, young couple, and the woman was almost taunting me by saying, oh, these are just stories. I was presenting Srimad Bhagavatam to them because I figured they're Gujaratis, they might appreciate it. And she was indignant and insulting, actually. So much so that I also felt sorry because someone had indoctrinated her with an idea that materialistic life is more important than the Bhagavatam, and that this is something quaint and antiquated and not very important. And that was her mood. And I left there a little disappointed because I thought, well, I did my best. Have you ever been disappointed on Sankirtan? Have you ever been? Yes? That's good. Have you ever been disappointed? Say yes. You should. It's good to feel disappointed. We should feel all these emotions when we go out on Sankirtan. Don't think you're going out and I'll just be blissful all the time and I'll be successful. You're already successful just by joining this party. But when you get rejected, there's something special you get. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said that when you're rejected, you get spiritual blood for your spiritual body. Anybody who's ever done anything good in the world has always been rejected. I mean, you read these things all the time. Guy gets rejected 500 times for writing a book, and then finally he becomes a best-selling author. But in the spiritual realm, you find the greatest acharyas have been harassed by people and even beaten or killed. Prabhupada mentions it, and we all know the histories, right? So when we go out, it's serious business. We're representing God. That's no small thing. We have to represent properly. So I came downstairs from the Gujarati couple feeling a little disappointed and slightly annoyed because of my own expectation. I thought they should take, and then not only didn't they take, but they tried to do the best they could to insult me. And then I went downstairs and there was these students. I think they all shared a small apartment, and they were from Yemen. They're Muslims. And they were sitting there smoking cigarettes and eating chicken. And when they saw me at the door dressed like this, they were amazed and they said, "Well, why don't you come in?" So I sat down with these nice young men eating chicken and smoking cigarettes in the house. And I started telling them about the Bhagavad Gita, which amazingly they had never heard of before. But when they opened the door, I said, "Salam alaikum, alaikum salam, madhava kifilak, alhamdulillah, Allah." That's when they invited me in. So they figured I was a brother, and I am a brother. So I came in and I sat with them. I told them, they were so excited to buy the Bhagavad Gita. Each one of them gave $20. And they saw me off as almost like a hero who had come into their house. And there was a fence in the little backyard area from the apartment. They all came out of the apartment. As I was walking down the street, they were waving goodbye to me. And I was thinking of the contrast, the Gujarati couple who should have taken a Bhagavatam set, according to my expectation. And then the Yemeni group with eating chicken and smoking cigarettes, who should have said, "You're what are you called? What are the Muslims call somebody who's a non-believer? Copy, sorry, get out of here." But they were so open. It lends new meaning to Vidya Vinaya Sampanne, Brahmanigami Hastani, in another way. Not just seeing an elephant and a dog eater, but just knowing that the world's complex, but there's order behind it. It's just Krishna's order. He's within everyone's heart. Everyone's getting the result of their karma. We're in that when we go out on book distribution, and at all other times. It's just we're so participatory in distributing Bhagavad Gita that we've become extremely aware of the fact that we're working with Krishna and for Krishna and with Krishna. And when we're able to do this and go into the environment, control our senses. You have to control your senses. First of all, what are some of the factors that might limit us from going out on book distribution? Some of the emotions that might hold us back from going out. I'm thinking of one now, you have to be able to do a Vulcan mind meld and figure out what I have in my mind. Starts with an F, ends with an R. Second to the last letter is an E. Okay, so fear. What am I afraid of to go out on book distribution? Let's discuss for a minute. What are the fears of going out on book distribution? Be honest and just tell me. Yes?
Can't communicate clearly.
That you won't be able to communicate clearly with somebody. Rejection. It looms large in the mind, doesn't it? There's this whole scenario we run in our mind. I won't be able to communicate, or will I say, and then also I'll be rejected. Yes.
What will people think about me?
And what will people think of me? I have an interesting phenomenon. When I go to different cultures, I don't care what people think of me. In America, more like, I don't want to be judged by people that look like me. But when I go somewhere else, the other devotees are afraid, and I'm like, what's the problem? Who cares? Yeah. Any other fears about going out? Those categories cover a lot, don't they? The fear of rejection, the fear of not being able to communicate, the fear of being judged by somebody else, and somebody says, oh, what are you? We used to get that a lot, especially when I was younger. I'm 67 now. I started when I was 16. I'm beyond on book distribution. And one of the most common things I heard people say was, why don't you get a job? They thought I was wasting my time. They said, why don't you get a job? As if, you're non-productive. Why don't you do something useful? One of my friends who used to distribute with, Ruchi Das, he passed about 20 years ago, but he always used to say, yeah, maybe I could get a job helping put stripes in toothpaste or something like that, as if there's something more important. And the fear of communicating, fear of rejection. Yeah, so there's different fears. And as I was saying, we have to learn to overcome these emotions. And what's some of the ways? What way? If I'll kind of give some context to this so you can give the right answer. If you have fear of going on book distribution and considering what Arjuna is going through here, which isn't necessarily fear, but he's overcoming a problem, how might you overcome the fear of going on book distribution? Go.
Having the experience.
By having this experience and surviving? Yeah, well, that's a good one. Definitely, you can see that when you go out and it's not what you thought it was and you did live through it. But what's another way in the context of the verse that we're reading today? I mean, by reading Bhagavad Gita. But Krishna teaches in the Bhagavad Gita how to be tolerant, or that we should be tolerant. And what else does he teach in the Bhagavad Gita that might help us overcome fear? What's your name? Priyanka. What does he teach in the Bhagavad Gita that would help you overcome the fear of going on book distribution? Tolerating ignorance. Tolerating whose ignorance? One's own or the other people's? Okay. Tolerating ignorance. I like the answer. Tolerating. Can anybody expand upon it? How toleration would help you overcome fear of going on book distribution?
Don't worry about the rejections.
Why?
Because we need to tolerate it, we need to just go to the
But why do you have to tolerate it?
Because they're still in ignorance.
They're in ignorance?
Yeah, the people.
Okay. Any other thoughts? Yeah.
So my point of view is that we are in ignorance. That's why the fear is gripping us.
Huh.
The more we become tolerant, the more we become detached to what people are saying, and certainly Krishna will help us over and operate well.
Did you hear that one? Yeah, so we could look at it like that too. That I'm in ignorance and therefore I'm not seeing things correctly. That's why I'm afraid. I'm seeing things in a distorted way. And it may also be my own desire. I find that sometimes devotees have this idea, or I have this idea, I should say, that I have to perform. Everyone's going to be watching me, and I'll be judged by all the other devotees about how well I do. Have you ever had that? Just a couple of you. It's an experience I have all the time, because whenever I go someplace, somebody says, oh, you know how to distribute books, let's see you do it. And then I have about 5-10 people following me around, and I'm saying, Krishna, yeah, why don't you show me how to do it? So what do I know? You know, every time we have to go out and depend on Krishna again and again. And one of the ways I've found to overcome that sense of fear is to become an instrument. leave it in Krishna's hands and say, Krishna, I'm just going to do what you said, and I'm not going to worry about the results. I know that sounds common, but applied to book distribution is extremely helpful because of this fear one might have that I have to perform in some way, meaning I have to sell a certain number of books, or I should be so expert that I won't be rejected. I shouldn't be insulted by anyone because I have to keep my stature. But if we let go of that and say it's up to Krishna, what I do, how it happens, and I put myself in Krishna's hands. What's a good way to put yourself in Krishna's hands? I'll give you a clue. It's the Yuga Dharma. Okay, but yeah, I was trying to get to chanting Hare Krishna. If you continually chant Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Hare Hare. Then Krishna says, Mam chayo vyabhicharina bhakti yogena sevate saguna samatitaitan brahma bhuya yakolte. You can rise above these fears and the modes of nature. If you keep chanting and you put yourself in the mood of an instrument, the instrument, like a hammer, just avails itself to the worker, and whatever the worker does, that's what the hammer does. It's not up to the hammer. I have another little trick. You want to hear a trick?
Yes.
Okay, only 3 or 4 people said yes. Everybody else cover your ears. And don't watch either, okay? All right, so feel in the back of your neck. Hold, right, it's right above the neck and just where the head, there's a little switch there. Can you feel it? Okay, now, when you flip the switch, you'll go from being human, hey, put your hand, you'll change from being a human into being a robot. You know about robotics, right? Okay, so when I say 3, you'll switch from human to robot. Ready? 1, 2, 3, switch. How do you feel? Much better, right? Like, what do you care? You're only a robot. So before you go out to distribute books, or at any time when you feel this sense, oh, I have to perform, oh, I might get rejected, I don't know how to communicate, you have the choice. You can switch off of human mode. Humans are always full of anxieties. True or false? Yes, the human experience. That's partly why we're so good at bhakti, because we can feel. And sometimes it gets misapplied or it gets in our way because we're so emotional. So in these cases, Krishna talks about equanimity, he talks about just being an instrument. And so literally do that. Just flip the switch. Say, I'm no longer an Indian, I'm not American, I'm not even human, I'm a robot. And I'm just going out. And now I'm going to approach this person and they say, get out of here, why don't you get a job? And he's like, what do I care, I'm a robot. This is suspending the idea of the mind that I'm not worthy or I should do better or whatever. You just do your duty. And this is a kind of self-realization that not so many people think of applying. And it's what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. Do your work, but don't be attached to the result. And also don't be attached to not doing your work, and don't give it up. So the obvious choice is to go out and do it in a way which is detached from those expectations or those ideas. And when you do that for Krishna, actually I find that people come more attracted. When they see my detachment, for instance, take it or leave it, or even a step higher. Wait a minute, are you qualified for this book? No, I don't think you are, sorry. Then, wait a minute, what do you have? If I don't do that demonstratively, which sometimes I do, but if I have that feeling of detachment because I'm there as a robot, I'm looking for people, I'm looking for a network to connect to. And what is that network? Somebody as Ishvare taradineshu balisheshu dusatsucha prema maitri kripopeksha yakaroti samadhima. I'm out there looking for people who are open. And I'm searching. The network is searching. Like the Terminator. He had those little things where you could look out and it would have a readout on the screen. You don't even know what I'm talking about, I guess. And it would say, like, is the person envious or are they open? You know, what if you had little glasses and you could look out? We should make something like that. You go out there and then you're on Juhu Beach just scanning everybody. It's like, oh, that person's perfectly innocent. It's like, hi. And, you know, if we have that sense, you know, I'm a robot, I'm just scanning, I'm looking. It's not emotional, it's I'm an instrument. And you just go from one to the next and you do your duty. That could be very revealing, is when you see the result that I'm actually okay, I'm always okay. Then you can rise above the fear and not respond, not get absorbed in that feeling. So that could be helpful. So what do you all think? What are your realizations about book distribution or anything that you've come across that you want to discuss or ask a question about? See, I'm scanning now. My radar's out. If you don't ask a question or mention anything, I won't even be offended. I'm non-emotional. Yes?
Most of the times we get this reply, "Oh, we have it, we have the Gita."
People say, most of the time they say, I have the
I
Gita.
have the Gita. We have been, all of us have. I've read it also.
I've already read it.
What would be our best response to that?
Okay, I'm glad you asked me that question. I'm going to help you out. You ready? Don't give Indians the Bhagavad Gita. It's a big mistake. If I went to a Muslim country with a bag full of Qurans, what do you think people would say? If I stood on the street in, name a Muslim country.
Yeah.
Iran. If I went to Iran with a cart full of Qurans, and I said, excuse me, come over here, have a look at this. What do you think they'd say to me? I know what they'd say, because one day, I'll tell you a story in the middle while I'm telling you this. I was going door to door, and I met this young Muslim kid. He was very enthusiastic. He definitely wanted to convert me to Islam. And when he saw that it wasn't possible, he became very ecumenical, and he took a couple of books, and in return, he gave whatever he could. That included 4 orange sodas in the can, you know, Fanta. That's popular, right? He said Fanta. Everyone knows Fanta. So it's Fanta. I think he gave a bag of nuts or something, whatever he had in his cupboard. And he also gave me a Quran, and he gave me a book about the Quran. So I put the book about the Quran and the Quran in my book bag, and I gave the sodas to the devotees to put somewhere else. And then I was walking across the parking lot a little later, and I saw this gentleman, and I approached him, and I showed him the Quran. He goes, I'm a Muslim. No, actually, he told me he was a Muslim first. And then I said, oh, great, here. And he said, I'm a Muslim. Because I showed him the Quran, so he repeated it. Like, are you crazy? Why would you give me the Quran? You got it so far? So I said, okay. But you don't have this. It's a book about the Quran. And I gave it to him, and he gave me a donation. And then I started realizing with Indians, the first time when they show rejection is when you show them a Bhagavad Gita, especially if you try to hand it to them. And what you're saying to them is, you should have been reading this, and you know it. And what people feel most afraid of when they get approached by us is being condescended to. Now, we are condescending, it's just a fact, otherwise we wouldn't be out there. We're saying basically, like, you really blew it, and here's a chance to redeem yourself. That's what we're really saying, if you look at the whole context. But we can't say that, otherwise we'll alienate everybody. Now with Indians, to hand them a Bhagavad Gita first, that's giving Bibles to Christians or Qurans to Muslims. Do you see the parallel? You're in India, you're giving a Bhagavad Gita to Hindu people. Okay, so here's what I do. I don't hand them anything. I don't hand them a card. I don't hand them a book. I don't tell them what our website is, because as soon as you give them something, they're going to walk away. They're going to use that as an excuse. As soon as you give the card, then they'll say, oh yeah, I'll get in touch. Don't give them a card. Don't tell them your website. If they say, do you have a website? Say, yeah, we do. That's all you tell them. So here's what I say to Indians. And you can write this down, because this is a very helpful mantra I'm going to give you. You can thank me later. So I say to them, as you know better than me. I preface almost everything I say to them with this, as you know better than me. And when I meet them, I ask them where they're from, and I appreciate where they're from, because everyone liked that, right? Boma Ijidi. And then I say, as you know better than me, the world has a lot of problems today. And as you know better than me, India has the solution in the knowledge. And then I tell them, you know Bhagavad Gita. Your mother read Bhagavad Gita. Your grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. I say those three things. And they're like, yeah, yeah. And I say, so you already know this. You already have this. Now those are the 5 things they were about to tell me. They were going to tell me, I already know Bhagavad Gita. My mother reads Bhagavad Gita. My grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. So I just took away everything they were going to say to me. So now they're like, what do I do now? And I didn't hand them anything, so there's nothing for them to reject. So there's nowhere to go. So then I go on and I say, so what we're doing is we're distributing the Bhagavad Gita to people who don't know Bhagavad Gita. And I name, we've translated it into Chinese, into Russian, into German, into English. And we're starting schools for young people so they can learn the whole Bhagavad Gita and teach it to the world. And as you know better than me, this is the real solution to life. The real solution to life is spiritual. You can't solve a problem with the same consciousness that you created it. And they're like, wow, he didn't hand me anything. He acknowledged me. He knows that my mother read Bhagavad Gita. He knows that my grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. He knows, and he's honoring that he knows better than me, that I know better than him, right? Then I say, all we're doing is a fundraiser. We're collecting money. And we're raising funds so we can give the Bhagavad Gita to people who don't know anything about it. Now, the difference is, because I was talking to Prabhu on the way from the airport, and he said, we go through this progression, but we say that at the end, when all else is lost. They've already said no 5 or 10 times, and then you've presented with that. Generally, when you're presenting something, someone said no once, you're going downhill, then twice, 3 times, 5 times by the end, and you do a last ditch effort to say, no, but this isn't for you. It's way too late. Flip it. Start at the beginning. Don't hand them anything. Don't tell them a website. And just honor the fact that they already know this. And it's not for them. And if they try to say, when they see you with Bhagavad Gita, so this is not for you. You already know Bhagavad Gita. Your mother reads Bhagavad Gita. Your grandmother memorized Bhagavad Gita. And then they calm down. And then when you say fundraiser, they go, how much? How much you want? And we say, we take Cash App, we take Google Pay, this, that. You just pull out your cards. They'll be pulling out credit cards and cash from every place they can find it and handing it over to you. And when that's all done, then you can hand them a book. Then you can give them as many Gitas or any other book, and they'll be so satisfied because they know you're not trying to tell them that they don't know Bhagavad Gita. And if you do it the other way, it's bounce, 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 bounce. So many people it bounces off of. It's not absolute, because nothing I say is absolute. I'm just saying it's one of the ways that you can try. Because you'll notice if you flip things sometimes and just try a new method, if you're getting bounced too many times, you try something completely new, like flip it totally, and you start getting a different result, you're on to something. And you can do that until it changes and you want to get a variant of that. What do you think? So you can try it. Just flip it. Make sure you don't hand them anything. Don't give them anything to reject, and just appreciate where they're from, appreciate that they already know Bhagavad Gita, and share with them that the world needs this, and we can do it together. What else? Yes? When we go out on book distribution, most of the time,
we look for someone from the same, like Hindu only.
you look for somebody who's Hindu only.
So when we come across to Muslims and we try to unknowingly, if we come across to a Muslim,
When we come across a Muslim unknowingly,
they just say I'm a Muslim.
I'm a Muslim.
Why you are offering me? Or
Why are you
they
offering me?
are Convinced, like ladies, some ladies are convinced. They say we are Muslim.
They'll convince, some ladies will be convinced I'm already a Muslim.
Yeah. But
So you want me to help you out with that?
Yeah, they give some money. Like
They give money?
But they say they can't keep the books.
You can't keep the books. Okay, well, we can respect that. Sometimes if they want to, we respect everybody. If they're nasty, we respect them from a distance. This is what Ishvare Taradineshu Balisheshu Dusatsucha Prema Maitri Krupopeksha Yakaroti Samadhima. If you meet somebody who's disrespectful, then Jiva Goswami said, well, the verse I just quoted said you should be upeksha. You should not get involved. Don't chase them. Don't try to convince them. Let them go. Just understand that they're having a bad day, bad life. Whatever it may be, they don't see it. They don't see the opportunity. So you let them go. Jiva Goswami says, then you pray for them. Respect as a soul. And you pray for yourself. Please reveal the way that I could possibly help them in the future. But you definitively should let them go, just like if you're picking fruits on a tree and you find a fruit that's not ripe, you don't try to yank it off anyway, right? Now, as far as people from other cultures go, this is part of the art. Prabhupada says the art of book distribution. It's an art. So you have to learn to interpret where people are from and adapt to it really quickly. So as soon as you notice that somebody's from a different culture, the moment you notice it, you have to have a key with you. Everyone has a key. And oftentimes the key is some language. So you heard me earlier when I met the Yemenis, Salam alaikum, alaikum salam, madhava, kifelak, alhamdulillah, Allah Akbar. Now let me teach you something you can relate to a little more. You can relate to that a little bit, but one time when I was a brahmachari, I was flying to India and I stopped in Hong Kong. Some cheap flight got me in the middle of the night. All I did was try to find the temple, and it was in some area with high-rise buildings, and it was an apartment. There's lots of buttons on the cab driver. Had no idea where it was. I didn't know where it was. 1 o'clock in the morning, in a foreign country for the first time, Hong Kong. So I had all these choices of buttons to push. 1 o'clock in the morning, standing there in a dhoti, like, and I'd hear something in Cantonese, that's what they speak there. And finally, I hear something in Cantonese. I go, Haribol, and all of a sudden the door goes, and it opens. All I said was Haribol. I didn't speak Chinese. I just said Haribol. Why did they open the door? Because anywhere you go in the world, if you're with devotees and you don't know who they are, all you have to say is Haribol, and they'll let you in. You could be anybody. You could teach this to somebody, get some students and just say, go over there and say Haribol and see if they let you in. It's like, Haribol. It's like, go on, you're in. That's the password, universally. Right? You could be a thief and you just walk up, Haribol. It's like, go ahead, help yourself. Take whatever you want. So everybody has that. Everybody has a Haribol in their culture. That's the key. So if you find what that is, like if anybody they're not expecting you to know the key. And as soon as you know the key, then they go, oh, you know, you can talk to me now. So if you know a few words in other people's language, do a little research, find out what they say to each other. You say that one thing, you know, like Kamcho. Any Gujaratis in here? Yeah, see? So then it's like, oh, wow, you know Gujarati? Yeah, it's like, not only know Gujarati, I love Gujaratis. And it's like, come on in. So there's that's everywhere. That's everywhere. Now, when I meet people, I try to learn what are the trappings. Because for many years I worked in the international section of the San Francisco airport. And people mostly from Asia, because it's the Pacific Rim, they're all coming back and forth, Korea, China, Japan. And now I can tell, ask my wife, everywhere I go, I'll pick them out anywhere. I'll say, that's Chinese, that's Korean, that's Indian. I'm always picking out people and say, that's who they are. And then we get by them, I say, can you hear the language? I know it, that's who they are. You know, you can see people, like you could probably tell, right, who's a Rajasthani? Could you tell? How? Certain way they dress, something, or maybe a South Indian. They're wearing a gold chain, or you know, whatever it is, something, you know. So this is the art. You have to see people. Now, with Muslims, so if they, as soon as somebody rejects something, here's a secret: honor the rejection. Honor the rejection, write it down. Honor the rejection means as soon as they give an objection, don't try to block it. Just take it and honor it. Like you gave me the best objection. So if someone says, I'm a Muslim, I can't tell you, oh, you're a Muslim, I'm so sorry. You take the book back immediately. As soon as they reject it, then you hand them another one. So if someone says, I'm a Muslim, I'm a Buddhist, I'm a Christian, and that's why they're rejecting it, you take that and you say, oh, okay, thank you very much for telling me. Great, here's the Muslim book. And you give them the next one. And so I was standing with a group of young Indian devotees in Houston, Texas, out in front of an Indian store. And of course, lots of people go there to buy the same kind of spices, right? And so this Muslim guy came out, and I showed him a Bhagavad Gita, and he said, no, I'm a Muslim. I said, oh, I'm so sorry. Here, let me give you the Muslim book. And I turned around to the devotees there and I said, give me the Muslim book. And they looked at me like I was crazy. And they're trying to do the right thing, and they're looking at me like short circuit. I said, give me the Muslim book. So one of them hands me the Krishna book. And I said, here's the Muslim book. And then I just changed the way I talked about it. I said, listen, Allah is within everyone's heart. The main purpose of life is to develop love for Allah. People have forgotten. They're absorbed in the external world. And this is important for people to come back and understand that the real purpose of life is spiritual, not material. The guy bought the Krishna book, the Muslim Krishna book. You know, it's in how you express yourself to people. Sometimes in our area, we've gone to get permits for, you know, like participating in some corporate thing, but we're secular. We can't take any religion. So we go back with slightly different language. You know, teach yoga meditation. And they let us in. A woman we met on the streets of Toronto, she saw us out there. She's a dentist with 2 or 3 dentist offices, and she came over. She was a very liberal, open-minded person, and she became a devotee. She's from Iran. She was so happy to see us. She got the books, and then I told her you should come to the Sunday program, and she showed up the next day, and she's been connected to the devotees ever since. So she brought her parents, elderly parents from Iran, to come and visit her. And they came there, it was Rath Yatra time, and they got out there. They're devout Muslims. And they said, wait a minute, is this some kind of Hindu thing? She goes, no, Mom, this is yoga. And they go, oh, all right. And they participated in the whole thing. So my point is, you have to know how to set context for people. And you just have to be really confident about it. You're not going to convince a Muslim that, no, you should change your idea. You just accept who they are, you honor it, and just say, this is it. Yeah, I'll give it to you the way you want it, what you were expecting. Okay? There was another one over here. Somebody had their hand up.
Yeah, so I got my answer.
Yes?
I got my answer. So my question was this. So when we are talking to people,
When we're talking to people
for book distribution.
for book distribution.
So we see that we are talking, but we know that they are not interested, right? So
Oh, if we're talking, they're not interested? I hate that.
So will we cut them off or
Yeah.
we say something by which they become interested? So like I got
So wait a minute, you're talking and you can tell they're not interested, or they're talking
No,
and
they
you
are
know?
talking and we can tell that they are not interested.
How can you tell?
They are not listening to us, they are just fidgeting, talking.
Well, if you want to stop the conversation, just ask for a donation. Because that's where the rubber meets the road, is when you come to the end and you say, yeah, and by the way, give a donation, then they, no, I'm busy, I gotta go. So that's how you can tell, generally. And if you want to just cut to the point, because you can tell they're just wasting your time, then you can just tell them, and by the way, we ask donations for these. Would you like to help? Then it's over. Is that all right? Okay. What else? Yes?
There is a question online.
A question online. Okay.
So,
Who's it from?
Abhishek Gupta.
Abhishek Gupta.
His question is, when we meet people and see that their potential is more, but they do very little, like ordinary people, how can we ask for more without hurting them?
Well, asking for donations, Krishna told the cowherd boys, remember? Do you remember this? They said, we're hungry. And Krishna says, you go beg from the Brahmanas. Do you remember what the Brahmins said? Do you remember when the cowherd boys went and begged the Brahmanas for food? Do you remember what the Brahmanas said? I'll give you a clue. The one word answer starts with an N and it ends with a G. Nothing. They didn't say anything. They just ignored them completely. And when the cowherd boys came back, what did Krishna say to them? This is the way of begging. He said, it's very difficult. And in fact, it's mentioned with Raghunath Das Goswami. Said, if people who beg know how hard it is to give, they wouldn't beg. And if people who are givers and a beggar asks them, if they knew how hard it was to beg, they'd always give. It's an interesting relationship because nobody likes to give their hard-earned money to a stranger, right? Right? Do you like it when somebody comes up to you and goes, give me some money? And it's like, how do I get out of this? You cross the street, go to the other side. How do I avoid this? How do I get out of this? I mean, you see people all the time with a clipboard. It's like, they're collecting. And it's like, go around this corner, try to avoid them. So we should empathize with how people feel when we approach them, first of all. And I forgot I got so entertaining myself, I forgot what he asked.
He asked that when someone has potential, but he gives very less, how to ask him for more without hurting them?
Oh, he gives very less. And how do you know he has potential? Well, one thing is to be not so attached to how much people give. It really helps. I can say that I've seen a lot of friction when devotees expect a certain amount, and especially if you think this person has more potential, he should give more. Let people give what they want to give. And I've found that I do better that way because I'm more open and I leave it up to them. And some people give a lot more, some people give a lot less, but it all comes out in the wash. So how do we know what their potential is anyway? If it looks like they're wealthy people are the hardest people to get money from anyway. Did you know that? Prabhupada told a story to Hansaduta. He said, because Hansaduta complained, he said, go to all these rich people and they give nothing. Prabhupada said, there was a lion, he lives in the forest, and one day, and he's the king of the jungle, so he got a bone stuck in his throat. And he put out a royal boon to anyone who'd come and put their head in his mouth and pull the bone out. And then he'll give a royal boon. So nobody wanted to come because they're afraid of the lion. So finally, a crane came, long neck. And when he came there, lion opened his mouth, the crane put his long beak down and pulled out the bone. And then he was standing there waiting for the boon, and the lion looked at him and said, what are you waiting here for? What are you still doing here? And he said, well, you said you'd give a royal boon to anybody who came to remove the bone from your mouth. And he said, you had your head in my mouth, and you want a better boon than that? And Prabhupada said, that's how rich people think. It's like, you got to talk to me. Why should I do anything else for you? So, people may have resources, but they have to have a state of heart in order to, be prompted that I want to do something more. And a lot of times when you give them the free will to help, you don't try to trap them or push them or anything like that. You just tell them. Like, there's also little humorous things that you can say when you're asking for donations. Like, sometimes I say to people, like $100 would be a pretty big donation. How many rupees is that? Yeah, that'd be a big donation on the street at Juhu, right? 8,000 rupees. So it's like $100 is a demarcation in America. So when people are going for donation, I'll say, we try to keep it under 100, but in your case, we might make an exception. That's funny, right? But it opens up the amount to a bigger amount in a humorous way. Or they say, like, how much should I give? And I say, there's no minimum, but more importantly, there's no maximum. And if you have these little things ready, like sometimes people are going through, like they're hiding their wallet and they're trying to like pick out the smallest bill, I say things like that. Yeah, I can give you change for 100. And I say, if all you got's hundreds, I can give you change. That's $100 bills, So these are all ready things you can have on your list. You have a repertoire that you can say. Very important at the time. The timing's important is when they're giving a donation, then you can bring them up. And it changes the environment. It's kind of like you're joking them, but you're also impelling them to give more in that sense. So that's one of the ways, is just to be humorous with people and sort of coax it out of them in that sense. But it's more in a detached way and letting them, make their free choice. And I found when I give people more free choice, and sometimes, to the extreme, so listen, you give or don't give, I'm still going to give you the book. It's up to you. This may not work as well in India, I don't know, we can test it out. But I've had people come after me later when they didn't give and say, no, I can't take this. I have to give you something. And they'll give a lot because I gave them free will. A couple ideas. Yes, Prabhu.
So, the example that you gave, that we have to become an instrument, and that
The example I gave about you have to become an instrument,
being like a robot.
be like a robot.
Sometimes in our experience, it so happens that when we get a lot of rejections, then we actually feel very disappointed. Then immediately the next.
But sometimes when we get a lot of rejections, we still feel bad.
Yeah, and then immediately the next person, Krishna sense, will give us good donation.
But then the next person, Krishna sense, gives a nice donation.
Yeah, so these kind of experiences are anti-motivating feels.
These kinds of experiences
are not very robotic, like, you know.
are not very robotic.
Because we are going through that roller coaster that, oh, I'm very disappointed. And then now Krishna helped. So, does that idea of being an instrument really help us feel Krishna's presence much more? This is what I understand.
Yeah, it's more to the point of what Krishna talks about in the Bhagavad Gita. He says, do thou fight for the sake of fighting without considering loss or gain, victory or defeat, right? So it's the same thing. Whether you get a big donation from somebody or you get rejected, same thing. We're doing the same thing. Whether somebody, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta said, I already mentioned about the spiritual blood, right? But he told his Matvasis to go out and knock on 3 doors, and he said, even if they reject you, they'll think, I saw a spiritual person today, and they'll make advancement. But this goes to the law of large numbers. I mean, the more times you do an experiment, the more you start getting to the average mean, right? And the more we do book distribution, the more experience we have, then the more even-minded we'll be. Because you know it'll happen. From your experience, you know that somebody's going to give a donation. One of the reasons we recoil when we get rejected is because we haven't had enough experience. Because if you go through enough people, then somebody nice is going to come along. And you just stay calm and wait till that person comes along. But anyway, to your point, whether somebody rejects or they give a nice donation, you should stay the same. Just same thing. You don't run down the street, hey, this guy gave 5,000 rupees, hey, look at this. I did it. And it's all the other side of the coin of somebody rejecting me. It's like, oh, I can't do this anymore. People don't like me. I don't know how to do this. I'm not a book distributor. Why'd they send me out here anyway? Don't go either side. Just do your duty. In your heart, you just feel joy. I mean, the other thing is, don't set yourself for failure. If you think everyone's going to take a book, you're going to feel like a failure because not everyone's going to take a book. If a cricketer gets up and thinks, I'm going to hit a sixer every time I get up to bat, they're going to be really disappointed, right? Do you know any sixer who's hit a batter? Tell me if I'm saying it right. A batter, are they called batters? Batsmen, sorry. A batsman that's hit a six, is it a sixer? They've hit a six? Sorry, I don't know cricket very well. Do you know a batter who's hit a six every time that he got up to bat? How many times out of 10 do they hit a six? How many times out of 100 do they hit a six? The best one? 8, 20. 20% of the time? In American baseball, if a person gets up 10 times and 3 times just gets on base, not a home run or a six, they pay millions of dollars. 3 times out of 10. If they bat 300, that's huge. 3 out of 10 will give you $10 million a year for hitting 3 out of 10. So if you find a few people in a day, you're doing okay. But a lot of times we expect something. I have to sell a book. So if you reframe what success is, just going out is success. You don't have to perform, you don't have to do anything. It's good enough just to go out and try. If you start from there, then you're better equipped to deal with people in an even-minded way. Yes?
Prabhuji, how best to approach?
How best to approach people? What I do is I make conscious contact with each person. I make a conscious contact. Then I try to relate to them as a person. So when I see people, I say, hi, 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 hi. And now, because I made a conscious contact with them, I watch to see what their reaction is. And there are different reactions. Like, there's one reaction on the lowest side where people ignore you and pretend you don't exist. You ever had that? They don't say get out of here. That would be preferable. They just like walk by like you don't even exist. And you look around and it's like, am I still here? I had that happen one time and I was so taken aback by it. I stood there and I became philosophical. I thought, this is what I've been doing to Krishna for so many lives. I just pretend he's not there. How does he feel? And so then you'll see another person who kind of, they smile, but they don't, you can't see their teeth. They're like, and then, there's a scale, so I call it the 1 to 10 scale. And for me to approach somebody, I'm looking for ripe fruits. I'm not trying to approach everybody. I'm looking for people who are already ready. So how do I know? I have a little radar gun. The police have radar guns there on your car. They put the radar on the car and they can tell how fast you're going. They don't have that in India? Yeah, you get a ticket, right? They chase after you and say you were going 70 kilometers an hour in a 50 zone, so you got to pay a ticket. So when we say hi to somebody, then what happens is you can see their reaction, and if it's 5.1 or above, it's a go. If it's less than 5, it's like, let them go. They're not ripe yet. So let them go. It's better to be selective than try to convince everybody. It's much easier. So I look for people's hi. And then when I find the people, if the people ignore me, fine. It's my batting average. It's the people just walk by, let them go, right? Now I know I'm getting closer. Because if you just keep going, inevitably you're going to run into somebody who's yesham tuntakatam papam jananam punyakarmanam. They're just waiting for this. So then, as soon as I see that they're a little bit open, who am I answering? I forgot.
Me.
Yeah. So then I say, I'm from such and such a place. Where are you from? So this is a way to make friends. So much based on where we're from. Like, we're sitting in the airport lounge just in Delhi, and I saw somebody's shirt. It said Gonzaga. Anybody heard of Gonzaga? It's a university in Spokane in northwest America. So you should have known that. And I just said, I know the name of the team. It's a college team. And I said, go Bulldogs. And they were like, Bulldogs? You know the Bulldogs? It's the name of the college team, right? So if I see somebody, I say, I'm from California. Where are you from? And they say, I'm from Bangalore. Bangalore? I used to live in Bangalore. Navrantakis, west of Cord Road. And they're like, wow. So if you're able to appreciate somebody, like where they're from, you tell them where you're from, and you ask them where they're from. And when they say where they're from, it's like, wow, you're from there? Fantastic. Then you have a rapport. It's a quick rapport, but it's something. Then, if they're not an Indian, I'll say, great, I'll show you one of these. Books on yoga and meditation show you how to get free from stress. And it goes from there. But I can say the rest of it on other presentations. But like if it's an Indian, I wouldn't hand them a book, as you already know. And I just go into the other thing and then tell them that we're doing a fundraiser. That's how I approach people generally. Yes, Prabhu?
I've seen some of your videos.
You've seen some of my videos.
So there I've seen certain people you selectively praise them.
I praise people selectively.
Yeah, appreciate them.
Yes?
So based on what, praising can be done to everyone. Can we not just do it to everyone? Why do you do it to few? Like what's the point?
What do you mean I selectively praise people? I don't know what you mean.
Once I saw one boy, he said that, oh, you're so spiritual, you don't need these books.
No, I say that to everybody. So it's part of my presentation, and it's true. And I'll just tell that part really quick. I say to people, books on yoga and meditation shows you get free from stress. You've heard of stress, right? They can say yes or no, and it doesn't matter because it'll still work. Because if they say yes, I say, really, you don't look stressed. What's your secret? And if they say, no, I'm not stressed, I say, I know, you don't look stressed at all. What's your secret? Just goes the same route, same algorithm, same circuit, right? So then I say, I say to him, this is a really powerful phrase, and you can use this. If you don't use anything else, you can use this. He goes, really, don't mind me saying this, but you look spiritual. You know how that works? Have you ever had somebody come up to you and they go like, you look really tired? Have you had a friend, like, you look tired? Or have you ever had somebody come up to you and is like, you look terrible? How do you feel? You look in the mirror and go, God, I do look terrible. I mean, and if somebody says to you, you look spiritual, it's instant self-realization. That's what they get. Instant self-realization, because all of a sudden they remember, hey, wait a minute, I'm not my body. I'm a spirit soul. I come from the spiritual world. I have nothing to do with this material world. Verses started coming to their head, and then, it's because you look spiritual. And then you say, after that, what's your secret? Now here's the beauty of that question. And by the way, questions are the answer. Whoever's asking the questions is leading the conversation. So when you ask somebody, what's your secret? You're changing the relationship. Remember earlier I told you that what people don't want is somebody condescending. They don't want you walking up and saying, your life's messed up, I'm going to fix it. That's not the psychology of a jiva in the material world. They're thinking, no matter how broken down they are, it's like, nobody going to come and fix me because I'm fine. And I'm going to fix it myself, and I don't need God, and I definitely don't need you. So you say to them that, what's your secret? Now what you've done is, you've put them on the Vyasasana. And you're like, you please tell me, sir, you tell me. What's your secret? How are you so spiritual? And then they'll tell you, according to their mode of nature, it's like, hey, I smoke ganja, or they'll say, if they're in the mode of passion, it's like, I work hard and I organize my life. And if they're in mode of goodness, they'll say, well, my parents taught me yoga when I was a kid. And if they're a little transcendental, it's like, well, I met a devotee, 10 years ago, and I had some prasad. Whatever it is, they'll tell you their secret. And then you go like, fantastic, I knew it. Like, I knew you were spiritual, I could tell. And then you have permission to go in and show them the book more, because you've already changed the relationship. So there's that switch, that we go from, now I forget who I'm answering again, I'm sorry. It was you, yeah. So we change the relationship with them. Okay, getting late, right?
Just had a small question. Prabhu, so what I have found in my experience is that when I'm handing over the
He's
Bhagavad
found
Gita,
that when he's handing over the Bhagavad Gita,
yes, so people try to back out. They don't even
people
touch.
back out before they touch it. Were they Indians?
Yes.
Okay, I already answered that. No, I really already answered. That's why. I told you why they're backing out. They know what the Bhagavad Gita is.
So actually I
Yes?
see fear in their eyes.
Yeah, you'd be afraid too if you forgot to chant your rounds for a week and then somebody came to your door and said, here's your bead bag. And like, we found it. It was at the bottom of the Bhagavad Gita. It's like, no. You have to respect where they're coming from. You have to invite them in a gentle way. Not like, hey, you forgot. People want to be invited in a gentle way. So you have to be gentle with them. And that's what the art of book distribution is. You have to figure it out. Where do people live? What's the psychology of the soul? And then you deal with them in that way. You can try it. Try reversing it. Use that at the beginning instead of the end. Here's another principle. It's called core and explore. We get into things we know work to some degree, right? But there's a lot of things that we think about. What if I did it like this? What if I did it like that? What if I totally changed it around, or I changed it a little bit? But we never do it because we're so used to just do what you know. Just do what you know, because I can get some kind of result, right?
Yes.
But if you take this example, core and explore, they use this in investing. Say, invest 80% of your capital in what you know is expected to get a good return. Take the other 20% and put it into other things, emerging markets and whatever else you want to do that's kind of like off the beaten path. Because the ratio works. And it's the same thing when you go out for book distribution. Take 20% of your time to experiment with things you've never done before. Like, what about asking people for much bigger donations? You know, instead of saying give a little donation, say give a big donation. You know, sometimes devotees say, well, just give a little donation. Don't say that for 20% of the time. Say, give a huge donation. Give everything you have. People say, how much should I give? Say, listen, some people give their whole lives. You know, no, I'm saying go big, change it 20% of the time, be outrageous, do something off the beaten path. Because if you start, you know, we need to you have to test your parameters. You have to test and see, you know, how far can I go with this? And some of the best book distributors in the world, they're the most outrageous because they have total confidence, because they've gone outside their safety zone and they've tried all kinds of things and they know it works. And then they've come to a new level of audacity almost in presenting because they're so confident. And people pick it up and they just feel like, I got to do this because this person's so confident. If you come up to them like I know in the early days when we started asking for credit cards, when it was like a big deal because it was really hard to have credit card acceptance back in the old days, kids. So then, you know, I'd notice that if we'd say, they'd say, we don't have cash. In the beginning, we didn't even accept credit cards. And somebody would say, we don't have any money. It's like, great, take credit cards. And then they go, no, I just found some cash. But then one day somebody said, okay, here, and they handed us a credit card. And then I started realizing that when we did get credit card thing, in fact, it was a physical machine, you know, before digital, you had to like that, and on a piece of paper. And we started realizing that it was all about being confident when you ask them. Because if you sound a little bit reticent about asking for a credit card in the middle of a bazaar somewhere, they're like, wait a minute, what are you going to do with it? What are you going to do with my credit card? But you say, no, everybody gives a credit card. In fact, nowadays, when people say, I don't have any cash, we say, good, we don't take cash. We take MasterCard, Visa, American Express, Carte Blanche, Diners Club. You know, you just like, that's all we take. And they're like, well, where do you take it? It's like, right over here. Step into my office. Here, we have the thing. And always have I have a CPA with me. Do you have CPAs here? What do they call the top accountant?
Chartered accountants.
Yeah, CS. We have our CS right over here, and I have a devotee standing there with the machine. It's like, he's a CS. Give it to him. You know, you have to have the whole thing, like, you know, this is it. Give a credit card. Be confident. And also, just one other thing, we got to go. It's late. What time is it? 7:30? Yeah, it's late at night. So we'll meet again. Tomorrow we'll go out to Juhu and wreak havoc on the material world by our distribution of the holy names and transcendental literature. And so I think tomorrow we have another seminar at 11 o'clock. Here? Oh. Okay. What do you all think we should do tomorrow for the seminar, just so I have a little heads up? What kind of things do you want to hear more of? Because we have how much time tomorrow at 11? Yeah, we have a little time. Any of you have time to come tomorrow? What kind of things do you want to hear more about?
Your experiences, like you have been into this. You mentioned like since 16 you have been doing this. So some of the prominent experiences.
I could tell a few. I'm not really great at remembering all the things that happened. I mean, I can bring up war stories and this and that, but I mean, I can do a little bit of that, but it's not my real thing to remember a lot of incidents. But I'll try. I'll try to give a couple. Any other things you want to hear?
More tips, more
more tips, practical stuff, right? You already know why you're distributing books, right? You don't need to hear that much more. But
Prabhu, on reading.
reading, we're going to do that on Sunday, right? Because I'm really into that. A lot of our marathons, like the last one we did for the Srimad Bhagavatam, to be successful, you had to not only try to distribute sets of Bhagavatams, but everyone had to memorize the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. Did you have that here?
No.
It didn't make it that far. I'm trying to make it popular around the world, but we had it was called Get the 34. There's 34, you know about it, right? There's 34 verses in the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. What's the name of the second chapter of the Bhagavatam?
Divinity and divine knowledge.
Correct. Divinity and Divine Service. So there's 34 verses. So we had it, not only, the marathon was about distributing books, but also memorizing the second chapter of the Bhagavatam. But not just forwards, also backwards. You have to know it forwards and backwards. How's that sound? It's not difficult at all, but it's nice because it sounds a little challenging, right? But everyone loved it. Everyone memorized the second chapter of the Bhagavatam, and so we added that on, and we're going to talk about the importance of reading Prabhupada's books on Sunday. Dear Srila Prabhupada, dear Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Panchatattva, Shri Radha Rasa Bihari, Sita Ram Lakshman Hanuman, if you so desire, please empower our extraordinary team here in Juhu to expand the monthly Sankirtan festival and the reading of Srila Prabhupada's books. Thank you for considering our request. And also, please bless Narottam Priya's dear mother, that she may attain ultimate shelter at the lotus feet of Shri Radha Rasa Bihari. Thank you for considering our request. Om Tat Sat. Everyone agrees with this prayer in whole or in part. Please unmute and say Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Krishna Hare Hare, Hare Ram, Ram Ram, Hare Hare.
Vanchakalpataruscha kripasanabheva patitanam pavanibhyo vaishnavibhyo Nandakoti Vaishnavi ki jai.